Hey guys, it's Dave. Welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to talk to you about the big news around ULA's Vulcan rocket. We finally got some results on the investigation into the anomaly that happened back in late March, and it's not looking too great for ULA, unfortunately. This could potentially have an impact on Rocket Lab's Neutron as well. We know ULA's Vulcan has a massive 38 launch contract for Amazon's Kuiper constellation, a constellation I've speculated before in the past that Neutron could potentially be a suitable launcher for. Now, with Neutron scheduled to come online by late 2024, early 2025, Vulcan was expected to be up and running way before Neutron ever got going. However, Vulcan has had so many delays after delays after delays, and now the delays continue. So the timeline between these two rockets is getting tighter and tighter. They're coming online closer and closer together. Now, of course, Rocket Lab may experience its own issues with Neutron development. In fact, I would probably count on it. They'll have some problem of some sort. Almost every rocket I've ever heard of has blown up at one point or another. But it does look like the timeline is getting closer and closer for these two rockets, and this potentially means that if launches for Vulcan slip further, but maybe Neutron could pick up some of those payloads. So let's take a quick dive into what's going on with Vulcan and the implications. Before that, though, if you're new here, please do consider hitting subscribe by the end of the video. I do cover space stocks quite regularly, and every like and comment does help out with the algorithm as well. I'd be really interested to hear, by the way, in the comments below, what rocket you think is going to be the biggest competitor for Neutron. Is it the Vulcan? Is it still the Falcon 9? Is it Relativity's Terran R? Something else? Let me know down in the comments below. Just the other day, we received big news on United Launch Alliance's upcoming Vulcan Centaur rocket that could impact Rocket Lab's Neutron as well as other industry players. There hasn't been a lot of talk about it because most of the space coverage these days is focused squarely on the SpaceX Starship, which has had some pretty big news of its own, but this is something definitely worth talking about. A couple weeks ago, things were starting to look up for the Vulcan. One of the most complicated and important parts of any rocket is the first stage propulsion systems, and we finally saw some great tangible progress on that front. Blue Origin's long-delayed BE-4 engines finally arrived to ULA and were integrated into the first stage of the booster. After a couple minor hiccups with testing, they did test fire successfully to clear one of the biggest hurdles for Vulcan to become operational. However, if you recall back on March 29th, the upper stage of the rocket, known as Centaur 5, which uses Aerojet Rocketdyne engines as opposed to the BE-4s, was on the test stand at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center for qualification testing. What was supposed to be a routine test unfortunately turned into a massive fireball, damaging not only the rocket itself, but also the test stand. Ever since that time, we've been waiting on the results of ULA's investigation into the anomaly and what will be required to fix it for future Centaurs. At the time, ULA had a launch target of May, but as soon as this anomaly occurred, the question changed from whether they'd be able to pull off a launch in May to how much longer this would push out the launch date. If this was a one-off issue with only that test article, then Tory Bruno was expecting we might only be delayed a few months. However, if this was a more systemic problem with every subsequent vehicle manufactured, then that could cause much further delays. Shortly after the explosion, we learned that there was a leak causing hydrogen to accumulate inside the rig. ULA already had several other Centaur 5 upper stages in the process of being built, including one that was already installed on top of a Vulcan booster, and it was hoped that the cause of this issue would be found to not affect these other rockets. Unfortunately for ULA, this was not the case, and the Centaur upper stage will need to be removed from the Vulcan booster for further work. Apparently, Centaur's thin, walled pressure stabilized tanks, built as thin as possible to be as light and efficient as possible, are just not quite strong enough at the top of the forward dome. The Centaur will have to be modified to reinforce the dome and ensure no hydrogen leaks occur in the future. Given that the Centaur modifications are required, it seems to me like we're now looking at a first launch date for the Vulcan of around the year end, depending on how major these modifications turn out to be. Now, I'm not an aerospace engineer myself, but I do find it surprising that this wasn't caught earlier on in the development process. After all, this rocket is getting close to the decade mark in development and has experienced so many delays around the BE-4 engines. You would think that surely they would have had enough time to do these pressure tests on the upper stage tanks, which don't require the BE-4s, before now. I will give their engineers a little bit of credit, though. I know it's very tough to work with hydrogen. It's one of the smallest gas molecules. It can escape through extremely tiny cracks and seams that other fuels simply can't get through. We did see that with the SLS launch. If you were watching, there were several times where we had to abort due to small hydrogen leaks. So I know and I sympathize with the fact that hydrogen can just be so incredibly difficult to deal with. However, now yet another delay has to be extremely frustrating for ULA, their fans, and of course, primarily their customers, which includes the United States government, Space Force, Amazon's Kuiper constellation, and more. Neutron is not suitable for all of these customers, and things like fairing size and other factors come into play for some of these launches, but I do think some of them Neutron could potentially compete for, and delays for ULA's Vulcan might mean that Neutron will pick up a few extra launches, which could be extremely beneficial to Rocket Lab's own manifest. I never cheer for a rocket to fail when I'm watching. I'm always hoping that they succeed. But as an investor, you do have to think about the competitors sometimes in these situations. And you never even know. I mean, we're looking at Rocket Lab maybe launching end of 2024. Now we're looking at Vulcan starting to look more likely to be launching maybe start of 2024. If there's another big issue with Vulcan, it's not inconceivable anymore that these two rockets come online extremely close together. That's not to say that Rocket Lab is, at the same point in their development of Neutron than ULA. They're definitely not. We definitely still need to see some of those tank pressure testing, some more progress on the Archimedes engine, and of course the whole article coming together. So still a lot more work needs to be done on Neutron than on the Vulcan rocket at this point, although at least Neutron isn't working with hydrogen, which is an extremely difficult fuel, as I said before, so perhaps they'll have a little less issues to deal with on that front. That's all for today. Just a quick update on one of Rocket Lab's upcoming competitors, the Vulcan Centaur, and the issues that they're experiencing. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, let me know what you think about this in the comments below. If you haven't already, I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you have a great week. Bye for now.